Hi, I'm Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with State Senator Jimmy Higdon. And as we're recording this, we're getting ready for the beginning of a new term for a new governor in the state of Kentucky.
We're getting ready for Christmas, Gary, and we're getting ready for a new governor in Kentucky. That's right. Tomorrow, as we speak, at noon tomorrow, Governor Matt Bevin will be sworn in as the new. I said noon. It's actually at 2 o'clock tomorrow. I'll be sworn in as new governor of Kentucky, and this will be my fourth governor that I've worked with, and look forward to working with Governor Bevin, and so and with each new administration, there is a transition period there that a lot of new people and a lot of new names to learn, and so we get through that transition, that few days of December there where they're transitioning into the governor's office, and then we start the 2016 session at high noon on January the 5th, and so I wanted to mention that, and you will scroll my phone number on the screen below, and there's a lot of issues coming up in the next session that. But there's a couple major issues that will be coming up, and the ones that we really need for people to stay abreast. And of course, the big thing is this is the budget year, the budget session. We do a budget every 2 years in Kentucky. Kentucky has about a $20 billion biennial budget, and that means it's a 2-year budget. And that's about a third of the money we spend in the state, but that's $20 billion. Our budget's more like $60 billion over the 2 years. But there's a lot of federal money, and then the road fund in there also. So so we'll be doing all that budget process, and which is very important to the citizens of the Commonwealth. And we'll also be working on the teacher's pension. And also looking at things that will affect the KRS, which is very, very important, that there's not a bigger issue looming than Kentucky's underfunded pension system. So we will be working on that. Everything else will be kind of take a back seat to those issues. So I do want to mention, Gary, that every year this will be my 14th annual prayer breakfast. And we'll be having that on Saturday morning, January the 2nd, at Lebanon United Methodist Church at 8 a.m., breakfast from 8 to 9, then at 9 o'clock, Reverend Lee Watts, who is our state chaplain at the Kentucky General Assembly, he will be doing a program for us at 9 a.m. at the United Methodist Church. So everyone's welcome, and that's the day after New Year, and we think it's very appropriate that we start the New Year off with a prayer worship and get our New Year started off on the right foot. So this is the 14th version of that. So looking forward to that, and want to invite everybody to that. We'll also be having some town hall meetings. My first town hall meeting in Central Kentucky. I have a couple in Jefferson County in December. But the first one in Central Kentucky will be in Bardstown on January the 4th, 8 a.m. at the Judge Executive's conference room up on the second floor of the old courthouse. That's January the 4th. And Representative Floyd and I will be there for that, and just be an open forum for people to ask questions about the 2016 General Assembly. So look forward to that, and we'll have one January the 11th at 8 a.m. Well, by the way, the Economic Development Authority in Nelson County sponsors the one we're having in Nelson County. The Chamber of Commerce sponsors the one in Taylorsville. We'll have that at 8 a.m. at the Chamber office on January the 11th. January the 18th, I have one in Casey County, sponsored by the Casey County Chamber of Commerce at 8 a.m. And on January the 19th, we'll have one at the Lebanon Marion County Chamber of Commerce at 7:30 a.m. Up in their conference room. So try to get those town hall meetings or legislative coffees in to give everybody an opportunity to come out and talk to us about the session and hear what our comments and to ask questions. And of course, like I told you, we'll post my phone number on the screen, and you can give me a call. We'll we're working with the local papers to have a survey, legislative survey, so you can look for that the week after Christmas. And come and visit us in Frankfort. Email us go to my webpage. It's real easy to remember, jimmyhigdon.com. You can leave me a message and it will automatically email it to me. So, or you can go online and Google me and my legislative email and legislative, my office phone numbers on there. I don't want to confuse anybody by giving out too much information, but if you have an issue, please reach out to me. Mm-hmm. Participating in the process is real important, and we love to hear from our constituents. And now, I did mention Representative Floyd would be joining me in Nelson County. Representative Tipton will be joining me in Spencer County, Taylorsville. Representative Mills will join me also on January the 19th here in Marion County. Of course, Representative Harmon, who represents Casey County, won't be joining me January the 18th. And when I go to Casey County, he's now the state auditor. So Casey County won't have a state representative when I go over there. There'll be a special election to fill his position. Probably won't be till early February.
February. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a lot of opportunities to get your voice and your opinion known to Senator Higdon as well for coming up. But what are some of the issues that they need to be voicing their opinions about?
Well, like I said, an issue we hear a lot about, and there's a group, I think, meeting in Nelson County this coming week about medical marijuana. There's an issue of expungement that's, a lot of people have voiced their opinion about. The death penalty, there's a lot of people are very opinionated one way or the other on that. The statewide smoking ban, the list goes on, Gary. I have people. I've been working on some legislation that people called me about this time last year. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way the process works. We've been looking at legislation now, issues for an entire year to look at what we're going to work on this session.
So what are some of the bills that you're looking to actually file? Have you filed any yet?
Expungement is probably my top priority. And there's a lot of other issues.
Now we talk about that. That's for...
What expungement is somebody who's committed a felony, a minor felony, a Class D non-sexual or non-violent crime. Mm-hmm. After 10 years will be eligible for an expungement, where it's kind of their records are sealed, and so they one of the things we found that in this day of a lot of employers looking for employees, once you're convicted of a felony, a lot of companies cannot hire you. Mm-hmm. So this would give those people who made a mistake years ago, give them an opportunity to get their record cleaned up and be able to go back to work, or be able to get a better job. They're working, but this will allow them to get a better job, and it'd be good for employers and employees. So
currently, is it possible for somebody to get expunged, or does it have to be through the governor?
The only way you can get taken off your record now is a pardon, and you will hear pretty quick. The governor will make several pardons. They'll probably be announced tonight or early in the morning, and there'll be thousands. Governor Beshear. There'll be literally thousands of people to apply for a pardon, and there'll probably be less than 100 that he grants a pardon to. So it's.
So as they're ending his tenure, they tend to do that.
That's typical. You might hear the governor doing a pardon during this session, but traditionally, and that's what they do on their way out the door. Mm-hmm. They will pardon a handful of people. So that's the only way to get it done right now is through the governor. And like I said, very few people have that. Will be fortunate enough to have the governor to pardon them.
Okay. So for the legislation, it would then go in front of a panel of people?
Well, to start out, it'd be introduced in the, in the House, and it goes through the, a legislator introduces the legislation, and it goes through a committee, and then once it passes committee, then it goes to the full Senate, and the full Senate passes it, then it goes to the House and starts over. It has to go to the committee, through the committee system.
I mean, through the legislation, would the people who want to be expunged, would there be a panel developed for people?
No, it would go back to, they would go to their courthouse where they were convicted and apply. And
so there'd be stipulations as to what
and it's a pretty thorough application. The Commonwealth Attorney would look at it. They would contact the victims of the crime that you committed, if there was a victim. If that victim, is not in agreement that you should be, the felony should be expunged, and most likely it's not going to be expunged. And so it's a long step. You can't have committed any crimes after that felony was committed, and you have to have a clean record. And like I said, it has to be a minor offense. It can't be, a murder or rape or anything like that. It would not be eligible for an expungement.
Right. So these are some of the issues that are going to be up for consideration potentially, or bills that will or have been. Or can you have filed a bill already? Are there bills?
There's bills been pre-filed. And now that I'm in the leadership position, I don't file as much legislation. My job now is, as people need legislation filed, I try to find somebody to file that legislation, or find a piece of legislation that kind of is similar to what a constituent wants done. So as a leader in the Senate, there's a lot of time constraints placed on me now that I didn't have prior to having this leadership position. So I won't, typically I'll file 10 bills in a year's time, or during session, and 2 or 3, 4 bills will be the most that I'll file this time. I do try to keep it to a minimum, because it is so much time, or I guess time requirements go into the leadership position. We meet on an average day probably 5 and 6 hours a day in leadership, talking about issues and meeting with legislators and constituents.
So, because last year you were elected whip for senatorial whip, right?
Right.
That is a 2-year.
That's a 2-year
period,
term.
right? Term.
That's correct.
So this will be your second year
correct.
being the whip. So, how was it for the first year?
It was good, Gary. I'm doing something that I really enjoy doing. I've been in I guess in a leadership position most of my life. And as the whip, what the whip does is the person who's in constant communication with the members of the caucus, and I like to manage by walking around, and so I usually try to get with each one of my legislators or each member of the caucus on a daily basis and talk to them and see what's going on, if there's any issues that I need to help them with, and then the number one job of the whip is to make sure that I know where the votes, how much each piece of legislation, if it has enough votes to pass. People ask me all the time, how come nothing ever fails when it goes to the floor for a vote? Well, the reason it never fails is the whip counts the votes, and if there's not enough votes there for the legislation to pass, then it doesn't come up for a vote. So it is I don't want to make it sound more important than what it is, but I do have a lot of interaction with the other members of the Senate, because I have to ask them a lot of times, how are you going to vote? In fact, that's what I have here is my whip sheet, and I had to, each issue that comes up, I go and poll the members to find out how they're going to vote on an issue.
Now, it's a Republican Party for the whip, right? Now, do you work with the Democratic Party in that way too?
If there's an issue that we need to know how their caucus is going to vote, then I will check with their, the Democrat senators have a whip also, and we'll compare notes and
work together to see how it's going to.
And there's issues that come up that we need to know how they're going to vote.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen that often. With 27 members in the Senate and the majority caucus, we typically have the votes we need to pass legislation. But on an issue where there's a constitutional amendment that requires 23 votes to pass, there has to be some coordination sometime.
Right. Okay. So it's going to start January 5th, right?
High noon on January the 5th.
And it's a long session
This is 60 days, 60 working days. So the Constitution says we start on the first Tuesday after the first Monday at high noon, and we have to be finished by midnight April the 15th. That's what the Constitution says about the long session. That's the parameters. So, and we have, in that time period, we have 60 days, or we're allowed 60 legislative days in that time period.
So hopefully we won't have the weather issues that we had last year.
Yeah, that was an interesting session, and we did have some weather issues, but who knows what Mother Nature has in store for us this year.
Just wait and see.
That's right, just wait and see.
And we'll keep you up to date. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking with Senator Higdon as well during the session, as well as with the representatives in our three-county area as well.
Yeah, and Gary, Merry Christmas to you, and
well.
and thanks to Channel 6 for allowing me to do this, and to all my constituents that are watching, Merry Christmas, and thank you for allowing me to serve as your state senator. It's a job that I take very seriously, and this seat that I occupy in Frankfort doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people of the 14th Senate District, and I do remember that. I remind myself daily that it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my constituents. So thank you for allowing me to occupy that seat, and thank you for allowing me to serve as your senator.
Well, thank you. Again, I've been talking with State Senator Jimmy Higdon. This is Gary White for Central Kentucky Television.